to have a discussion about something that is kind of difficult and tricky to talk about, that has been reoccurring in my life, other people's lives around me, that I want us to all work on, just generally, to heal us collectively. So the thing I'm going to talk about is triggers. Now, we can either trigger somebody or we can be the one that is causing the trigger. And the thing that's interesting about triggers is basically learning how to be able to, whether you're on the receiving end or of triggering somebody, or whether you have been used to trigger someone. So whether you're on the end, let me clarify that, whether you're on the end of triggering someone or someone being triggered by you, this is very important to be able to assess and determine what is the best thing you can do in this situation. So in my experience, this is my path, and I can only speak from my path. Everyone has their own paths. So to me, it's like different paths, same destination. Okay. So for me, I had to come in terms to my triggers and really understand what they were and what the source of them were. And the first step for me in order to assess your triggers is to be able to see yourself in third person. Now, what I mean is to be able to see yourself outside of yourself, to be able to take a step back without bias, without, basing your circumstances or the current situation from your perception, from your glasses, from your eyes, and being able to see it from an objective or not personal perspective. And that in itself, is a whole process to learn how to be able to do that. Because when we are going through these situations, our emotions are rooted so deeply into that situation that it is very hard to step outside of those emotions. So that's another clue as well. Try to remove your emotions for a moment, take a step back and look and observe how you reacted in that situation. Now, whether you were the person that received or were triggered, or you cause someone to be triggered, this is very important, because this is how you would determine what you're going to do in the next situation. Okay, now if you're not able to do that, it's going to be very hard for you to change your behavior for your own betterment, in terms of your own internal peace, in terms of bettering your relations with other people. It's going to be harder to do that. It's going to be harder to know when to walk away, in case you are triggering someone or in case they are triggering you. So it really just depends on you being able to see outside of yourself. And this is not I'm not saying dissociate. I'm not saying, take your spirit out of your body and look at yourself. What I'm talking about is when you notice that either you triggered somebody or you were triggered, later on, whenever you feel comfortable, best time for me to do this is when I'm about to lay down for bed, really in a place where my body is relaxed, when my thoughts are clear, almost, just kind of relaxed, a physically relaxed state, so that I'm not distracted. But when I'm able to do that, then I can really focus on my thoughts and focus on the entire situation. And with practice, this gets better. You can eventually be able to run around and do things and be able to do introspection, a little better. But it's easier when you're laying down and you're just beginning and you just really want to get a deep understanding of what happened. So that's one of the first things to do, is really to be able to have introspection, really be able to see yourself from the outside of yourself in third person, and really analyzing the situation without bias. You can do this many ways. You can imagine you're somebody else. You can imagine you're somebody else looking at the whole situation. You can just imagine you being outside of yourself to assess the overall situation. So the next thing is, if you were the one that were triggered, okay, this this takes, obviously, like I said, you have to see yourself in third person, because that is one of the ways you're going to know that you even triggered in the first place. Like, some people move around in the world and they don't even know that they're triggered. They have no idea that they're triggered. They just know that you did something and it's just a well of emotions coming up, and it's like you did what somebody else did a long time ago, and it's not the case, you know. And so really being able to assess like what actually happened, like being able to look and see what actually happened is very important. So if you were the one that were triggered, okay, the best thing to do is introspection. Like I was saying earlier, laying down. And honestly, that's one of the ways I meditate. I lay down. I prefer to lay down. I know a lot of people, you know, see people cross their legs and things like that, but I prefer to lay down. I'm gonna really relax my full body, but just literally, you know, lay down and relax. And you know, if you believe in a higher power, then you can be like, okay, God, give me the answers. Or even if you don't, you can be like, you know, I want to know why I responded that way. So it's very important to, and now you're reaching out to divine energy, whether you're spiritual or not, or religious or not. You're reaching out to try to pull in, attract answers to you, to understanding why you were triggered. Now, the thing about being triggered is that you can have a string of events from your past that will trigger you. And maybe, you know, when you start to realize your triggers, you may realize a trigger in the middle of that time span of the full span of triggers. But as you continue to, you know, heal and continue to interact with other people and situations, you may see that not only did that trigger bother me, it's this trigger and that trigger. So you may end up finding like a string of events, like more than one event that happened in terms of contributing to your trigger. Now that's the thing, you know, for me, you know, and it's also a process of healing the trigger. So I'm going to say that too. Like, it's very important that once you identify that trigger, that you do the work to heal that trigger, okay? And what that means is loving up on yourself, being compassionate to yourself of like, what happened, you know, whatever happened, you know, not being hard on yourself about it, not being hard on what happened in the past, you know what I'm saying? Understanding it, you know, objectively from the other person's standpoint that basically did you the harm, like knowing that potentially they were going through some stuff, you know what I'm saying? Now, granted, that doesn't excuse it, but this gives you an understanding that kind of settles you a little bit, because the thing is, we all go through our stuff. We all end up at some point, whether intentionally or unintentionally, we all end up triggering somebody at some point in our life. So when you put that level of understanding on a situation, it definitely eases the punch, you know what I'm saying? It definitely eases the punch, you know. But things like, it's not your fault. Like, whatever happened in the past is not your fault, you know what I'm saying? And even if you did make a mistake, I feel as though, or what people perceive as a mistake. See, I feel like that everything that happens was meant to happen. I don't really believe in mistakes, because it's like, one action triggers another action and another action, another action. So there was something that had to be done or learned from whatever situation that you made, you know, which essentially shapes you who you are today. So without these things that have like traumatized us, without these harsh situations, we would not be the people we are. And that is sitting in self-love, like just loving who you are, you know, appreciating your faults, appreciating the things that people love about you, just appreciating all of it, just loving yourself wholly and fully and completely. So that is another part of healing the triggers. Like, you have to be gentle to yourself, you have to love up on yourself, you have to tell yourself kind words, you know. And this is, you know, something that I had to learn, you know what I'm saying, because, you know, I had a rough childhood, you know, like a good amount of us have. And whether, you know, physically, whether emotionally, we all have some type of struggles. But I had to learn how not to beat up on myself, you know, when I'm going through things or remembering things, or it becomes like a spiral, like a downward spiral of continuous just blah energy, you know, like low vibrational energy. And so I had to basically learn how to not do that. And one of the ways I did do that is through affirmations. Now I'm gonna get into that a little bit more because I'm trying to stay focused and I can ramble. So I'm gonna stay focused back onto the trauma. Okay, so, and granted, grieving the trauma, processing the trauma, you know, it may not be easy, okay? It may take time. Be gentle on yourself. If it's not like hurrying up, like you're like, you know, because I think in my experience, it was like, man, I thought I was over this. Man, I thought I was over this. Man, I thought, like, and it just kept happening. And it was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to give myself space to grieve, you know, and that's another thing. Give yourself space to grieve. Whatever had happened in the past, you have to give yourself space. If you are holding it in, tucking it in, smiling, you know, taking it on the chin, you are literally suppressing your emotions. And when you are suppressing your emotions, you are opening yourself up to be triggered later. And you're opening yourself up to basically that emotion from that trigger. You're going to put it on somebody else. So you're spreading that. Oh my gosh. So my phone ran out of storage. I don't even know. Ran out of storage. But anyways, so if you are not letting go of that trigger, you are literally spreading that same energy from that trigger onto somebody else, okay? So this is going to be difficult. This is not helping. This is being the opposite of helping in terms of the global ascension that we're going through. And it's just spreading more negative energy, more low vibrational energy throughout our global atmosphere. So if you were the person that actually did the trigger, now obviously you want to apologize. You know, we don't want to intentionally or make it seem like, you know, dismissive of anyone's feelings or anything like that. We definitely don't want that. We definitely want to make sure that we're still having compassion for the things that they're going through. If you were the person that actually, you know, did the triggering, as an empath, a light seed star worker, indigo child, especially as these, in addition to, you know, just even if you don't resonate with any of those, just generally, what's really important is to assess the entire situation, to take a step back and really look at, you know, is this something that, you know, I could have done differently, right? You know, but what I do want to say is for us, for those who resonate with those 5 identities, is that, and generally as well, is that it's not beneficial for us to try to change ourselves based on somebody's trigger. Now, obviously, if you're in a relationship with somebody, obviously, you know, this is someone you really care about, you may want to work through that. But in terms of trying to change yourself, this is counterproductive for your own growth, for who you are. You are not cultivating, you know what I'm saying? You are basically putting their needs above who you are. And what may end up happening is, as time continues to go on, you may end up being a contortionist. Like, you may end up becoming very flexible to the point where you're not who you are, you know, you're not your real person. So as people who are, you know, empaths and people who we don't like people to suffer, you know, and it actually breaks our heart a little bit when we cause pain in someone else due to the trigger. But we also have to recognize, you know, whether this is something that we are willing, if this is our core person, like if they're being offended by our core being, this is who we are at our core, you know, it may not be beneficial to either continue that friendship or relationship, or something has to give where, you know, that person is healing themselves. And you know, so definitely take a step back, give yourself time to heal from the entire situation, because we're hurt, you know, by triggering someone. But also give them space, give them time. Hopefully, you know, they'll take the time to realize that it is a trigger, and they'll actually work on healing that trigger. You know, it's just really tricky because, you know, we can't heal for people, but you can try to offer your support. You can try to offer resources. You can try, but not everyone's open to those things, especially if it comes to trigger, you know. And it's like, when the other person is blaming you, like, oh, you should have known to not do this, or like people always are doing this and things like that. This is a key sign to know that the universe is repeating these triggers to them because they have to learn from it. They have to grow from it. They have to do something differently from it. And that's for all of us to understand. Like, if the universe is sending us the same triggers over and over again, there's something that we're not getting. There's something that we have to learn. There's something that we're not grasping fully that we have to continue to grasp. Like, we have to continue to go and get that understanding, or we're going to be introduced to it over and over again. And I say this from my own experience, from my own life. You know, I would get the same triggers, the same people, the same like situations, and I'm like, wow, you know, like it's the same thing, but the more you go through these triggers, the more you are actually cleaning up that trigger, the more, and as long as you processing it, like you have to process it, you know. If you're not processing it, then you're suppressing and you're spreading negative energy. So this is really important. To just stand who you are. You know, if the person is overly triggered or seriously triggered by something that is just staple to you, you know, something that you feel like this is your core person, you may have to make a tough decision based on like you've been in your life or not. Now it's your choice, you know, and things like that, but like in terms of keeping your peace and them having peace as well, to just take a step back, and that's very hard, but in terms of just being peaceful and just having peace is very important. Right, so things definitely got cut off a third time. So, you know, third time's a magic charm or something, right? Like, but I didn't want to just end it like click. So I'm gonna just say, is there anything else I need to say? Really just give yourself grace in any of these circumstances. Whether you are the one who did the triggering, whether you are the one that was triggered, give yourself grace. You know, we're here to learn, and we will continuously get these triggers until we get the lesson, until we get it through our heads, until we learn what we're supposed to learn from getting triggered, and gradually, as we continue to experience these situations, you'll become less and less bothered by it. And this is actually a hallmark of Ascension as well, like to consistently get the same trigger, to get triggered, you know, like repetitively about the same thing. This is a hallmark of Ascension. You are going through an Ascension process, and it's not easy. But yes, give yourself time to grieve, give yourself time to understand, give yourself some self-love and self-care. These are all very important to do, because it's really hard. Like, it's going through Ascension. I know like a lot more people are going through it now, and I kind of was going through it like months ago, like real bad. Like, give yourself the time to grieve and process, and find what's best for you. And, you know, just part of being able to see yourself in third person is part of knowing what helps you heal, knowing what elevates your vibration, just being aware of those things. And honestly, what I did personally is I make a list. I have a list of things that I do to increase my vibration. And when I'm really in a funk, I go back to those things. Sometimes I forget about the list. I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I do forget it. But when I do use the list, even when it's like I'm forcing myself to basically do one of the things, it helps me so much. So I'll do a whole nother video about that, because it's helping me tremendously with everything that's going on in the world and in our personal life. But I really appreciate you guys for watching. I really hope this video helped you. If it did, like, please like, subscribe, follow, all those good things. And let's talk about it. Like, what helped you get through your triggers? What did you learn from your triggers? If you're comfortable sharing, you know, just let's have a discussion about it, you know, because we all learn from each other. We're all here to help each other. We're not like, oh, I'm the leader, I'm the boss, like, we're all here to help each other. So, you know, let's create a dialogue, let's share experiences, and yeah, and grow. All right, well, have a beautiful day. Stay cool out here, because over here is smoldering hot. I mean, smoldering. I probably got a whole shade darker today, like, wow. But enjoy yourself. Take care. Bye.